Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Dave from the Military Millionaire community, and today I want to talk to you about what happens if a tenant dies in one of your rentals. Look, this is not a fun experience, and unfortunately, I'm talking because this has happened to me in the past. In fact, I mentioned this on one of my posts earlier today, and somebody said, "Wow, have you done a video on that? That's good information. You should get that out there." And I realized that I've talked about it a little bit, both on podcasts and with my community, but I hadn't produced a video on it. And since this is something you're likely to experience in the time that you are in the real estate game, I want to make sure that I touch on everything you need to know about the general process for what happens if somebody dies in your apartment. Now, I will say it's a little different if somebody passes away and they have family and they figure it out and no big deal. My situation is probably kind of a maybe not worst case scenario, but like middle ground. I guess worst case scenario would be like a murder and there's just like blood and guts everywhere, or you have to wait on the law to get involved. But in my scenario, a gentleman died. He was a tenant, passed away, and it was August, so it was not exactly ideal, cool weather. And it was 2 or 3 weeks before we realized that he passed away, because he passed away the second week of the month and he didn't really have family anymore. And we didn't really notice. We didn't catch it till he didn't pay rent. He was always very on time with rent, so we caught it right after rent was due because it was kind of strange. But my property manager called me one day and said, "Hey, this happened." Oh, well, now what? And I had no idea. So I want to talk you through that because this was about a $4,800 expense for me, completely unexpected. And mind you, this is on a lease that was about $500 a month. This is in the Midwest, so it's not $4,800 on a $3,000 a month property. It's $4,800 on a $500 a month property. So it could be much more expensive depending on where you reside. So the first thing that we had to do was bring in a environmental cleaning team. Essentially, this is industrial hygienists, which is like the commercial version, but they basically come in and they clean your place professionally, because you can't just, I know, I can't believe I'm going to have to say this out loud, but somebody would do it. You can't just sweep the floor and say, "Okay, we got it." No. Somebody finds that out. That's bad mojo. So no. Professional cleaners. And this could be more expensive or less expensive depending on a couple things. So if you have carpet, you're going to need to pull all the carpet out, recarpet the place. Going to get a little bit more expensive. In my case, it was nice vinyl flooring. So they have chemicals and everything they can treat and they can clean. Now, I will say it was $4,800 for them to do all the industrial cleaning and everything, but it could have been a lot more depending on where the individual had passed away and the extent of repairs I wanted to do. It could have been an entire renovation of the kitchen as far as pulling out cabinets. It could have been renovation of basically whatever room he passed away in. In my case, it was kind of the living room. It wasn't really that big a deal. It was just some floor cleaning, but it was still fairly expensive and time consuming. It took about a month to get all this taken care of. And it was, like I said, $4,800, which is 3-4 times my normal turnover expense, basically the entire year's rent, to just clean the place and get it ready for renting again. And again, depending on the situation, it could be a full gut or remodel. After you clean the place, you're going to have to go in, you're going to have to get all their belongings, and this might vary state to state. In Missouri, it's 90 days that we had to hold on to everything that had been in the apartment in case somebody came and claimed it. And if they do, awesome. If not, really just dispose of it. It really kind of depends on what your state says. In our case, most of it was kind of trash anyway, and we basically just disposed of it. And so we had to store that in a storage facility. So now you're racking up, if you don't have a storage unit, you're racking up storage fees because it can't just be sitting in your garage. So it really depends on a lot of different variables for how much this could cost you. My property manager owns a storage unit for various things like this, and so we were able to just lock it in there. Otherwise, that would have been another $150, $300 for storage, depending on the amount of stuff over that 3 months. Some food for thought. And again, this all assumes a clean death, right? Like it could be a murder. It could be a less clean death. It could be someone bleeds all over the place. You never really know. Death is not a fun subject, but if it's someone who passed away in like a murder scene, or there's suspected crime, you could be waiting on investigations before you can touch the crime scene. You could be waiting on red tape before you can clean the place out. Might not even be able to rent it for a long time. Like, that's not ideal. Now, what happens to the lease if somebody passes away? Kind of an interesting subject. Now, I will say this probably depends a little bit on your personality. For example, on a month-to-month lease, the act of dying effectively counts as 30 days notice, right? They're not going to pay you rent. In a long-term lease, depending on your state, but in most, legally, they're still bound to that lease. And so whoever the next of kin or whatever is could theoretically be held accountable for paying the remainder of that lease. Or say if a family member was on the lease and it was like a husband-wife and the husband passed away and the wife wanted to break the lease, that's not really something you have to do. Now, for me personally, I think this kind of comes down to transparency and moral character. If somebody dies in my apartment, I am in no way, shape, or form going to try to get the estate holder to pay me the remainder of the 6 months worth of lease. If there are unforeseen expenses on top of everything, maybe to recoup, I guess. But I'm not the type who's going to make the estate holder, the executor, hold the property for months on end, or even just pay the lease for months on end while it's vacant, just because. I would rather just get another tenant in there and keep rolling. That being said, if it sits vacant for 2 months, maybe you have them pay that difference. Ultimately, this is all going to depend on your tolerance for really just how you want to handle this, the vacancy, and then also what the state legally requires, because you're not going to want to go against what the state legally requires, but you also don't really want to be too much of a jerk and push that button, because again, this person just lost a family member. Now, in my case, they were on a year lease. He passed away. No impact, no idea for a family, which is sad if you think about it. But there just wasn't anybody around to come and take care of him or his belongings or his possessions. I mean, we never found anyone as far as family goes. And so obviously, what are you going to do with the lease? Terminate it, move on. It was a month process. In fact, while we were doing this, the furnace went out in the same unit. So it was kind of rains it pours. It was like $7,000, $6,000, $7,000 worth of stuff that happened in 1 month on this one unit, in my 10 unit, and essentially ate my entire CapEx budget, or not CapEx, but my maintenance repair budget, a good portion of it for the year. But that's why you budget for those things. So it was very unfortunate, but it's not going to happen again this year. So this year, theoretically, we'll earn another $6,000, $7,000 over what we would have earned last year. In essence, if you boil it all down, this is basically just clean the property, take care of belongings, and try to help them get everything settled, and then be understanding that this is not an easy time for them, just like it's not an easy time for you. And you don't want to be that jerk who's like, hey, I need my rent money. No, not the game. Now, if you found this video useful, go ahead and comment down below, and I'll do some more personal experience videos just like this. Hopefully you never run into this situation, but if you do, now you know how to handle it.